Hello, I'm here to talk about the books that I've read in the past month or so, and maybe the essays that I've read. Start it right off. My grandpa had this book on his bookshelf, The Devil Reached Toward the Sky. It's a brand new book. I think it came out in August. It's an oral history of the making and dropping of the atomic bombs. And I guess a week before he gave it to me, I was in class in one of my ethics courses, and the question was posed whether or not the US was justified in dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And intuitively for me, I guess, I was like, no way were we justified in doing that. And then my grandpa happened to have this book, so I was like, all right, what better to do than read an oral history and then make a decision, which I think maybe I disagree with it on a principlist level, where I don't think it could ever be justified. But in particular, in Japan, it definitely was not justified. Like 9 out of 10 of the major generals, including MacArthur, I think, said that we didn't need to do it. Japan was producing an incredibly small amount of steel to the multiple tons that we were producing. And we were basically starving them out with our blockades. So everyone's like, well, it saved American lives because we didn't have to invade them. I don't think that we would have had to invade them, I don't think we needed to invade them in the first place. But on a human level, okay, hold up, let me get back to the book. The maybe 2/3 of the book in the beginning is dedicated to the American scientists, which was really interesting. It's such a beautiful thing, all these scientists coming together from across the globe to further nuclear power, which in itself is really amazing. Of course, the first thing the US did was weaponize it, which was not good, but I don't know, it was pretty science heavy, so that I didn't care so much about. And then there's a small section of the book where it's reports or oral history from the bombers, the Enola Gay and the Boxcar, I think. And that was pretty interesting. Being like a History Channel kid, I found it just interesting to read about the planes and the crazy maneuvers that they did. But then it got to Hiroshima survivors and Nagasaki survivors for maybe 150 pages or something. And it was just the worst, most horrific thing that I've ever read. On a human level, I don't think that we're justified dropping the bomb just because of how horrible it was. There's some part of it where a scientist was like, nobody died instantly. There'd be a brief period of time where someone boils alive. But then there are the people who are affected by radiation sickness. People who are walking around with their arms out in front of them because their skin is all hanging down. It was really terrible. Yeah, this is a nice video. Another one of my classes, we talk about editing. So I've been thinking about editing a lot, and people turn to oral histories, I feel like, for the purest story because it's easy to have the community speaking. To have the community be a part of the story, which I guess in this case is Hiroshima and Nagasaki and maybe the lower level people that were building the bomb in the US. But somebody will always be editing the book. This guy Graff went through thousands of hours of footage and letters and whatnot, and he picked those certain things. He picked what he wanted to include, so in that way it's still his perspective. And then so much of the book is from General Groves and high up people, so that the community voice is still kind of lost. Yeah, that's not a totally thought out idea, but That's how I was feeling. Anyways, enough for that terrible book. Maybe it took me like a week and a half to read the 500 pages. It was pretty slow going, especially when they really got into the science. But I'm gonna have to give this copy back to my grandpa, but it has some cool pictures that I can't find now. I mean, it's got pictures of dead people, which is really horrific, but this picture of the Trinity test, it's crazy. Just on an existential level, it's insane. Speaking of existential, I got this book, good old Barnes & Noble, Existentialism is a Humanism by Sartre, whatever. It's 2 essays. The first essay is Existentialism is a Humanism, and then the second essay is a commentary on The Stranger. I would recommend Existentialism is a Humanism for basically anybody to read. He's kind of defending existentialism from people saying that it like it's a death cult. It's a pretty complicated book that I feel sort of ill-equipped to talk about, but he was also defending it from theists, I guess, because existentialism is atheistic, not in the sense that they are trying to argue that there isn't a God. They're arguing that it doesn't matter either way, because man is created as he exists. There are some good quotes. Maybe I'll read one. Man is nothing other than his own projects. He exists only to the extent that he realizes himself. Therefore, he is nothing more than the sum of his actions, nothing more than his life. Like, I really like the existentialist perspective. I've read some Camus, and I read Nausea. I love Nausea, so I guess it makes sense that I like this essay. But there are a lot of good little like nuggets in this. I think it was actually a lecture that he gave, but it's pretty well put together. He talks about how optimistic of a way of thinking it is, and you can't distinguish play acting from true feeling. Like, you can't really draw a line from when you truly feel something or when you're thinking that you feel that thing. That was interesting. I have all these notes. Stuff against Kant, I guess. Man is not an end because he's always in the making. I don't know, I liked it. Oh, I forgot about the second essay. The second essay, comments on The Stranger by Camus. I've read The Stranger, and I guess we have the privilege of so many decades of people digesting and analyzing it that I feel like people have condensed it into this thing that makes sense, and it can be described in its context and has the myth of Sisyphus to back it up. But when Sartre read it, Sartre, whatever, when he read it, it was like a totally new thought, and he really had to grapple with it. And you get that sense in this essay that he is totally lost. He's totally been put off his footing. And so it's interesting in that way. I didn't find it to be that informative or entertaining. It was just interesting to see him kind of confused. Yeah. He talks about the passion of the absurd. He includes this quote from Kierkegaard that I like. The surest way of being mute is not to hold your tongue, but to talk. I feel like people have been saying that since ancient Greece, but I like that way of putting it. And then I read 2 books that maybe I'll put on the screen somewhere. One was in the comments. It was Bright Lights, Big City. I feel like, I don't know if it is just me, but when I read something on an e-reader, it just doesn't stick with me as well. So I remember it was this dude, what do people call it? A cynical, older version of Catcher in the Rye or something. but I enjoyed it. The writing was pretty, and it was this dude living life for no good reason in New York City. My memory's really terrible. I can't remember much of it at all. Yeah. And then I read, that was in a comment on my video. So thank you to whoever commented that. I enjoyed reading what people, or seeing what people are currently reading. So leave in the comments what you're currently reading, if you feel like it. Yeah, and then the last book I read was Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector. And I guess she's kind of had a resurgence, and I've never read her. And I did like Near to the Wild Heart. I don't have anything that critical or significant to say about it because it was on my e-reader. And when I read on the e-reader, I don't really take notes, so then it kind of goes out of my mind. But I remember it being pretty difficult to read, like non-linear and floating, well, I guess it's stream of consciousness, which I don't know how I feel about that exactly. It was pretty and I respect it, but maybe it's not my ideal form of prose. I think that it's a book that I have to read twice to really have any significant thoughts about. Let me look up. No, wait, I don't have my phone. Which I guess, if you recall from last video, flip phone, still flip phone in it. It's really helped my reading and other disciplines that I care to get into, if anyone is curious about where I'm at with it. I don't find it to be that inconvenient in life, but inconvenience is good anyways. And then I guess I've read, the majority of my reading has been essays for school. Kantianism, contractualism, Rawls, Nozick, virtue ethics. I guess if I were to direct anyone to any of the essays that I've read, there's one called Duty and Desolation by Ray Langton. It's about Kant, and you don't need that deep of an understanding of Kant. I guess if you know the categorical imperative or knowing his ends in themselves thing, then you could read and understand this essay. But it's basically saying that to be moral is to live a desolate life. If you were to truly be moral in like an absolutist sense, then you will necessarily sacrifice some of your personhood. It's about this, I think it's a young Hungarian girl who's like 22, and she writes a letter to Kant about her lying to her boyfriend. And obviously Kant says you're not allowed to lie. And it's only like 20 pages long, but they have just a crazy back and forth. I don't want to spoil anything. It made Kant kind of seem like a tool to me, but the girl was really impressive, and Langston, I don't remember, connecting the two of them was interesting. Yeah. I guess that's in my another rambling, discordant video. Yep, next time I read something interesting, I'll post about it. See ya.